This is the Books Podcast presented by Tim Hague.
Lawrence Block joins us again, I'm delighted to say, with his new book, The Girl with the Deep Blue Eyes. I take it the title is because the dragon tattoo was taken, is that?
Actually, I wrote a book, maybe about 40 years ago called The Girl with the Long Green Heart. So if anything, it probably harkens back to that.
You got him before Stig.
Indeed.
Now, this new book is, well, the first note I made when I was reading it, it's pretty steamy. It's quite racy. I note in the very first chapter we have an event, an erotic event of sodomy. And it's uninvited sodomy as well. I thought, wow, this is a bit of a roller coaster. This is racy. But then, of course, I remembered that you've got form. You started off writing. I'm going to search for a word that's not smut here.
Mid-century erotica, we call the genre.
There is quite a lot of quite steamy sex in this, and that's really because it's noir, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Our hero in this book is Doak Miller. Doak? What sort of a name is Doak? You do explain it, but I think I'm going to have to ask you to tell us again.
Well, it's it's a name of there was a football player of some prominence in college football called Doak Walker, and in a sense, Doak's name comes from that.
And he is, he's an ex-cop.
Yes.
And I don't think I'm going to give too much away if I say that he is going to fall heavily in love with the girl with the deep blue eyes, whose name is Lisa Otterbein. And Doak is, he's sort of middle-aged. He's retired from New York policing and gone to Florida. So it's a bit of a bit unexpected for him, surely, to fall suddenly in love the way he does.
It is, but, if he doesn't, we just don't have a book.
Well, we do, and it's a beautiful setup. Tell me about the setup. How does he first come across her?
Doak is, as you said, a former New York City police detective, and he retires to Florida, and to keep busy there and also to supplement his pension, he sets up as a private detective, even gets himself licensed down there. And in the course of this, he becomes acquainted with the local police, and he's called upon one time to pose as a hitman in order to entrap a local businessman who is looking to hire a hitman and who would recognize anybody in the local police force, so that they really have to go outside. And he gets the guy on tape, and it's a successful operation. And time passes, and he's called upon again, this time to entrap a woman, Lisa Otterbein, who has made some inquiries looking to find someone to kill her husband.
One of the things I liked about Doak is his moral ambiguity, which is, to some extent, it's your stock in trade, isn't it? Well, the last time we spoke was about Bernie Rodenbach, who's one. You said his one moral flaw is that he steals things. Doak he's a good guy. He's a cop, but he has this moral ambiguity. He has his own attitudes to what's good and bad. And he's got a sort of an attitude, for instance, to capital punishment, where he thinks, sometimes I approve of it, sometimes I don't.
Most of my characters, I think, have a certain amount of moral ambiguity, as candidly do most of the people I come across in life. There are, fictional private detectives who, some of whom even talk about having a code. Robert Parker Spencer will even talk with his girlfriend about his code and that. For example, Matthew Scudder, my detective character who's been in 17 or 18 books so far. If he ever had a code, he's long since lost the code book. And what I think makes him interesting for me and has continued to hold my interest for all that many books is that he makes it up as he goes along. And most of the people I know, one way or another, I think, make up their morality as they go along.
I'll tell you what else I liked about Doak very much. He does talk about himself. He talks to Lisa when they're together about his life and his background. But we know him really not by what he says, but by his actions.
Sure.
And that does drive the book forward.
I think that's true, and that of course was intentional. I don't like in that sort of a book where the character is constantly letting you know what he's thinking and feeling.
You know what it reminded me of, and the second note I made when I was reading this is, I could spot the influences of James M. Cain. Later on in the book, you make it clear that I'm not as clever as I think I am, because we have Doak watching all these film noir movies on television, including The Postman Always Rings Twice and Double Indemnity, which are from James M. Cain books. But there is a very Cainish feel to this book, I thought. Were you referencing it?
Well, not specifically, though. It's hard to write that sort of thing without having Cain and similar noir writers of the 40s and 50s somehow in mind in the background. I know my Hollywood agent, a fellow named Brian Lipson, read the book in manuscript and summed it up in his pitch. He said, "This is James M. Cain on Viagra."
Oh, yeah, all that roller coaster sexual drive is very James M. Cain, I thought.
Yes, although in Cain's books, although the impulse is there, there's relatively little sex that actually happens. In fact,
it's all implied, though.
Yes, it's implied at most. In fact, sometimes if you read books of by Cain and others mining the same field. From back in the day, you wonder how they could be that hot and bothered without ever having done anything.
I'll tell you what else reminded me of Cain. Cain's books, as we know, are wonderfully compressed, marvelously spare, and do an enormous amount in a very small space. And this is a shortish book. It's a couple of 100 pages, which has an enormously strong narrative drive, and in that same way does a lot within a relatively small space.
Thank you.
I don't know if you agree with me. I find U.S. crime writing really very, very sort of localized, or at least it's very much tied to its district. You've written a lot about New York, but this time you're in Florida, and there are lots of crime writers writing in Florida. I think of Lawrence Shames and
Carl Hiaasen,
Hiaasen,
yes, and
course,
any number, yeah. And a
Did
lot
you
of
worry
Elmore Leonard's work was set in Florida also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you ever worry you were stepping on anybody's toes? Do you think do they have their sort of a fiefdom over Florida?
Well, the part of Florida that I wrote about, I don't even know if anybody's said anything there. It's a sort of area that most people don't know. It's not up in the Panhandle. It's not down in South Florida. It's on the Gulf Coast, but in a place that doesn't get much traffic.
Well, for Brits, sort of run-down parts of America are almost impossibly glamorous in that way. I mean, we watch Deliverance and we think, wow, how fabulous to be there. And, there's Ned Beatty saying, no, it really isn't. But we love being taken into these sort of these dark bits, these less sort of salubrious parts of America.
Well, we get a similar delight watching Vera on the tube. So
that's good to know. I want us to make this into a film and cast it. I want to know who's going to be. I know who's going to be the girl with the deep blue eyes. I thought I'd play Doak myself, and you could be Sheriff Radburn.
Okay.
Who's the policeman who commissions him to.
That
for these things.
would work. I have no idea who's going to play anything. The series is at the moment being developed, whatever exactly that means. The book is being developed for a TV series, what they call a limited series, meaning one season.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, and given that I'm playing Doak, if we could get Scarlett Johansson for Lisa, that would be highly convenient.
You'd like that.
Oh, I very much want.
Yeah.
You bring me actually to the last thing I wanted to say. I wanted to know what happens to Doak and Lisa beyond this. I had not had enough of them. And if it is going to get commissioned for one of these limited seasons, could there be another? What does happen? Where do they go?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think I'll be doing another book about the characters, but it's hard to rule anything out. I've been mistaken often enough in the past.
It's especially a bad idea if television gets hold of it to rule anything out, because if it's a hit, I mean, if everybody was dead at the end of the series, they'd do a second one.
That's right. From Beyond the Grave, they'd find a way.
A prequel. They could do a prequel. Yep. Yes. Larry, I really, really enjoyed The Girl with the Deep Blue Eyes. We're going to say again that it's published by Hard Case, which is the Titan imprint. And in the UK, it's £16.99.
I think that's a bargain.
I couldn't agree more. Larry, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Always a pleasure.
That was the Books Podcast with Tim Haig. The Books Podcast is produced by Green Shoot. You can find out more at www.green-shoot.com, and Tim can be contacted on tim@green-shoot.com.